The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Hello and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him. And it's just me this week. As promised, I'm doing another one of my Tubi deep dives. And for once, I found something that is not absolute trash. This week, we're talking about Dr. Hackenstein, a sort of horror comedy from 1988. And I had so much fun with this movie. This is a great, great movie. A great example of like a, sort of Frankenstein parody that is clearly, loving the original material, while also doing a lot of fun stuff with it. And it does a good job of the classic horror comedy thing where to be effective, the horror has to be horrifying and the comedy has to be funny, and they have to balance. And I think this really accomplishes that, while being like a classic, like late 80s comedy in so many ways. Just a super fun film. So yeah, we'll get into it. So we start out, we've got, a scientist mixing liquids in various bubbling beakers, some of our classic opening sci-fi type shots. We eventually see that some of these beakers have tubes running out of them going into like a bloody skinned animal, probably a rat. It's kind of unclear. We have a whole like revival thing. He's talking about, he's doing this for science and for the life of his beloved. We have sparks flying, and the rat begins to move, and he is thrilled. We also have like a little title card here that says 1909, the dawn of modern medical science. So we have our time, which is a strange choice. It's a little bit far away from Mary Shelley's time. It's a little bit like it's after, it's before, the like Universal Monster time. So yeah, interesting choice. Then we get another title card that's 3 years later. And we have our scientist that we saw before, who we'll get to know as Dr. Elliot Hackenstein. He's being lectured by the dean of the nearby college, who wishes that he would stop fooling around in his home lab and would start working at the university and doing education and sharing his work with the world. But Elliot says it's not ready. He doesn't really he wants to work in secret for now, but he did invite the dean over so that he could see the work. And so they're like having dinner, and they're going to go see at the end, or see after they're finished eating. While they're eating, though, we also get a character that I really, for most of the movie, I was like, what is the point of this character? The jokes with her are not particularly good. Like, they're just fine. And I don't, so Dr. Hackenstein has a maid, and she is deaf and mute. And we get a lot of gags where, like, she holds up a sign that says, like, do you want more tea? And stuff like that. We get something later where somebody rings the doorbell and it, like, it's attached to her foot. Stuff like that. Like, but none of the jokes really hit, but it does turn out that she's a bit of a Chekhov's deaf mute maid. By the end, there's at least two pretty good, solid gags with her that make her worthwhile, but still just kind of a strange choice. I mean, it does seem like we always have our mad scientist, if there's any sort of assistant or helper or whatever, they have to be deficient in some way, based on like societal expectations. They have to, be deformed or handicapped or, hunchbacked or whatever. So in this case, deaf mute. So once they finish up eating, Elliot is like, I want to talk to you more about my ideas about resurrection. And the dean's like, I thought you gave that dream up 3 years ago. So when the mouse or rat or whatever at the beginning was being done, Elliot's like, oh no, I've been continuing work. So he takes the dean to his lab where we see a woman's head on a table. And the dean is obviously horrified. And he's like, you're a murderer? And Elliot's like, no. This is Sheila, my dead wife. She was decapitated by the propellers of the Lusitania on its maiden voyage, and I hope to bring her back someday, somehow. And the dean is like, but no, this is still horrible. I'm going to recommend that the university dismiss you. And wait a minute, I was on the maiden voyage of the Lusitania, and you weren't there, and there was no accident there. You are a murderer. You must have killed her in some horrible experiment. And Elliot's like, yeah, but it was an accident. I mean, things got out of hand. I didn't mean to. And the dean is like, it doesn't matter. You cannot create inanimate creatures and bring them back to life. And Elliot says, I already have, and reveals another gross rat thing. This one seems to be on 2 legs. It's a little puppet thing. Pretty good practical effects, like, in that classic 80s style where no one is going to be convinced that this is a real gross rat monster thing, but it's a fun little puppet that's really there, and I liked it. So when the dean sees this thing, he has a heart attack, falls over, and is just dead. So that's no good. And then Elliot hears a woman's voice calling out to him, and it's Sheila's voice. She's got like a French accent, and she is, upset that he killed her and that she's just ahead and where's her body. But the thing is, this is not like a reanimator situation where we have an actual talking head. This is in Elliot's mind. Like the head is definitely not living. But yeah, Elliot hears her. And it's not like a telepathy thing. I think it's definitely an insanity thing. He like touches her hair and a clump falls out, and he's like, oh no, time's running out. We really have to get on this if I'm going to save you. And that conveniently we cut away from that to a car driving through the countryside full of 4 young people. We have 3 women and a man, or like I would guess 20 somethings. And we find out that we have Melanie, who is an orphan who now lives with her cousins, and the 3 others are cousins. So we have Leslie and Wendy, who are kind of wild, free-spirited girls. They're drinkers. They're driving crazy. They're speeding along. And then we have Alex, their brother, in the back seat, who is kind of like a weird nerd. They end up crashing the car, and Alex breaks his leg, and so now like Leslie and Wendy are all annoyed, and they're blaming Melanie, even though I think Wendy is the one that's driving. And they're like, well, we're going to tell our mom, your aunt, the woman that they all live with now, we're going to tell her it was you. You wrecked the car, or you can keep quiet about this whole thing and help us out, and maybe we won't blame it all on you. Of course, inevitably, they arrive at Dr. Hackenstein's house, and we have like there's a lot of great sort of like slapstick bits here. So they ring the doorbell, and this time the maid's awake, so the doorbell causes a sign to like raise up next to her that says like doorbell, and so the maid goes and answers the door. Meanwhile, Elliot is frantically trying to hide the dean in the background, like the young people just don't see it. He ends up like taking him to a guest bedroom and like tucking him into a bed, and then they're like, is there a phone? They're talking to the maid. Is there a phone here? We need to call a doctor. He's hurt his leg. And that's when Dr. Hackenstein appears, and he's like, I'm a doctor. So we have him setting Alex's legs sort of comedically, hurting him and everything. And, the Wendy and Leslie kind of give a mostly fake version of how the wreck happened, and that they don't know what to do. They're not going to be able to make it into town to see their dear grandmother. And meanwhile, Wendy is like aggressively flirting with Elliot throughout this whole thing. And then there's like a knock at the door, and he's like, "You all stay here. I'll go take care of this, and I'll get you the phone, and we'll deal with all this." So he goes and answers the back door, and we have like this married couple who are like filthy grave diggers who are talking really loud about their business, and he's like, "Shh, I've got guests here." So he takes them to his lab, and they reveal that they've had no luck. They know he requested young women, but all they could find was one man. And like completely overlooking any trace of irony here, Dr. Hackenstein is like, but I need 3 young female bodies to complete my experiment. And so he's angry, and they're apologetic and everything, but they're like, there's a lot of competition for bodies out there, and we only have what's available to us. You wouldn't want us to take someone before their time, would you? And Elliot starts hearing Sheila's voice in his head, like, yes, of course, that's the solution. We take people before their time. And, Elliot's like, yeah, 3 young female bodies? That's interesting. That's exactly what just showed up at my doorstep. So he does go ahead and pay the grave diggers and keep the body that they brought and sends them away. And when he comes back into the 4 young people, he says, oh, something happened, the storm, our phones are out. But you can stay the night, and then I'll drive you into town in the morning. And Wendy is into that. She's very flirty still. And then we cut to like later, the 3 girls have one room, and then Alex has a room to himself. But he's not in his room. He's sitting in the hallway, peeking through the keyhole into the girls' room, watching the girls undress. And so we, in classic 80s comedy fashion, we're going to get, it's like Porky style. We're going to get some like, topless type nudity. And so both, I think Leslie and Wendy both, they're changing. So we see them topless. But of course, Alex is frustrated because he can see his sisters naked anytime he wants. What he really wants is to see Melanie naked, but Melanie is getting changed behind like a privacy screen, and Alex is so frustrated by this that he like yells out, and the girls realize what's happening, and they catch him in the act. So he gets sent on his way, and he decides to, since I'm sneaking around snooping, I might as well keep going. He looks in another keyhole, and he sees the dean tucked in bed, but presumably unconscious or sleeping or whatever. And then we cut away from the nighttime activities here to the sheriff's station, where we have a detective asleep at a desk, and he is woken by knocking, and a woman bursts in to complain. And this woman is Phyllis Diller. Well, eventually she turns out to be the mother of Wendy and Leslie and Alex, and the aunt of Melanie. But Phyllis Diller, we have previously seen on the show back in like way forever ago, in Mad Monster Party, where she is the bride of Frankenstein. So not an actress that seems like we would likely see her multiple times, but there you go. We have a sort of brief cameo with Phyllis Diller here. She's just, berating the detective that there's missing people, and what's he doing about it? And he's like, I didn't even know about it. This is the first I'm hearing. And she's like, oh, you're so incompetent. You don't even know. Really just chewing him out. And we go back to the manor from there where Wendy is putting on perfume and preparing to, like, go flirt with Elliot. And, sure enough, like, she ends up coming into his, like, he has, like, a regular lab, and then he has the secret lab with all the corpse parts. So he's in the main part of the lab, and that's where Wendy comes in. She's in, like, not lingerie per se, but like very flirty nighttime attire. And so she's kind of continuing to flirt. He offers her some wine, and there's a whole kind of song and dance where, like, he's got a syringe full of some sort of drugs that he keeps trying to jab her with. And she doesn't know it, but she keeps, like, dodging it just by coincidence. And eventually she kisses him, and that's when he just, like, stabs her in the back with the needle. And as soon as she's unconscious, we immediately cut to him just sawing off her legs. So yeah, he's done that, and we cut from that back to the sheriff's station where Mrs. Trilling, continues to argue with the sheriff, then storms out. And as she's storming out, she's like, and really, I'm only mainly concerned with my kids. My niece, Melanie, she'll turn up. It's fine. So clearly she, Melanie is like the unloved orphan here. So we go back to the manor where now Leslie wakes up and finds Wendy gone, and she starts wandering the house searching for her. And this is a pretty good bit. We have Dr. Hackenstein popping up in front of her to attack her, but she, like, holds out her hands, like, defense style. And these hands cannot receive defensive wounds because he wants to use them. So we get sort of a really extended, chaotic fight where he's trying to cover her mouth, and they're rolling around and knocking things over. And the maid enters the scene in the background. It's the middle of the night. She's coming to check on something. And because she's deaf, she has no idea. And at first it's like, oh, she's in the background, she's doing other things. But eventually we have moments where they're like, where Elliot and Leslie are, like, fighting inches away right behind the maid, and she has no idea. So it's some pretty good slapstick. I enjoyed this. And eventually Leslie does get free of Elliot, and she tries to run from him, but she runs directly into the secret lab, finding, all the corpse parts and the half-finished female creation on the slab. She screams and faints, and then we cut to Dr. Hackenstein hacking her off her arms. And from that, we go back to the sheriff's office where we have the deputy, not the detective, but his sort of like backup or whatever, who is really proud of himself. He captured the legendary grave robbers in town. And of course, this is our sort of inept old married couple. And the detective starts lecturing them about how their work is ghoulish and awful. But he's like, most gravediggers steal jewelry, maybe, gold teeth, stuff like that. But you all take the bodies. What's that about? And they're willing to admit that it's for medical experiments. And the detective's like, nah, the hospital has legal methods at this point. That's not it. And is there someone specific? You're not selling it to the hospital. Who is it? And at first they're very protective. They don't want to tell the secret. The detective's like, well, there's 4 missing young people, and I think you all had something to do with that. And they're like, no. We only mess with the dead. We do not do anything to the living. And we go back to the lab where Hackenstein has now gotten his creation put together. He already had the torso from a previous woman that the gravediggers did find him a while back. We've got Sheila's head. Now we've got Wendy's legs and Leslie's arms. The only thing we still need is somehow in the accident, Sheila lost her eyes. So he needs a good pair of eyes, and everything will be fine. Why he can't just take the eyes from Wendy or Leslie, I don't know. But he needs eyes, and we have one girl left, so we know where this is going. But we go back to the sheriff's office first, where eventually Mrs. Rhodes, the wife of the grave digging pair, she gives up the name Dr. Hackenstein, and her husband is like, "What? You? I can't believe you gave that away. We're going to be in so much trouble." And she's like, "Well, I didn't want us to be in trouble here." And the sheriff's like, no, I'm not going to say anything about where I found this out. I'm just going to go out to Dr. Hackenstein's and I'm going to ask him a few questions. I'll keep you all out of it. And so, meanwhile, we cut back to like a classic horror movie POV camera shot with heavy breathing as someone is sneaking up on Melanie as she sleeps like an innocent little baby. And suddenly, as the POV gets really close to her, her eyes spring open, she wakes, she screams, and then we see that it's actually just Alex. He's just creeping on her, and he's like, "Where are my sisters? I thought they would be in here with you." And she's like, I don't know, I've been asleep. And so then they decide they're going to go look around and try to find Wendy and Leslie. But of course, right away, they end up bumping into Dr. Hackenstein, and they ask him, and he's like, I don't know, I haven't seen him. But since you're up, I was working in my lab. Would you all want to see what I'm working on? And they are both interested, but the lab's like up in the attic, and Alex still has the broken leg, so he can't make it up the stairs. And Elliot's like, well, that's fine. Why don't you go get some rest, and I'll show Melanie around the lab, and then I'll send her to bed shortly. But Alex is smarter than that. He's not going to just completely abandon her. So he just stays on the stairs, and we get all these great sort of gags where like they're yelling back and forth up and down the stairs. Melanie asks about the cousins again. He says he doesn't know. Alex yells up, "I think he's lying. I think he did something to them." And then Elliot's like, "Well, I did hear maybe they were going out to get help or something since we don't have a working phone." And Melanie starts getting worried. She's like, "Oh no, they're probably, they're finding a way to get me in trouble for this again. Like they really want to put all the blame on me." And she's just kind of like weeping about that. And Dr. Hackenstein like uses this opportunity to kind of comfort her and, ease her mind. And she says, "You're truly a godsend." And he says, "I feel the same about you." And then we get where he's like, looking deep into her lovely eyes. Of course, he has, I think we get like, Alex at this point makes his way up the stairs finally, and he starts peeking through the keyhole as he's wont to do, watching Elliot and Melanie as they're talking about how long they've waited for each other. And of course, Melanie means a man who is, an adult who is, caring and will, comfort me in times of trouble. And Elliot means, a pair of eyes that I can take out and put into my monster bride. So he tells her to sit tight. He's going to go get them some more wine. And as he leaves, we have Sheila's voice again, sort of like nagging at him, like, "Oh, you're falling for her, huh? You've forgotten all about me at this point." And he's like, No, baby. I'm doing this all for you. I'm going to get those eyes. I'm going to put, I promise, it's you and me. So he picks up a syringe and goes back, and we have him like a silhouette of him sneaking up. And Alex is seeing this all through the keyhole. And he starts trying to break in, but before he even can, Elliot realizes, like, I can't do it. I can't hurt this girl. So he ends up kissing her, and that's when Alex bursts in and is like, he's trying to take advantage of you. He's a villain. He's a bad guy, and all this. And Melanie is really upset that Alex has burst in and embarrassed her. And Alex is like, "But you don't want him. You want me." And she's like, "No, get out of here. Go away." So she storms out in embarrassment of the whole thing. Alex tries to follow her, and while they're gone, Elliot goes back into his secret lab, looks at his creation, and is like, "I'm so sorry. I failed you, but I won't fail you the next time." And Sheila is like, "Yeah, you can still make it right. I want those eyes. Go get me those eyes, and everything will be forgiven." And so then we see Alex and Melanie parting ways. They go to their separate rooms. Alex is kind of pouting. Melanie is sort of, dreaming of like a possible future with Elliot where everything would be great. She even like she ended up with like his handkerchief somehow in all of this, and she notices that it's just absolutely drenched with blood, and she's like, "Huh, I guess he must have cut himself." And she falls asleep. Meanwhile, Alex has an idea and gets up. He does not fall asleep. So we get like some cross cuts of like Alex starting to snoop around the manor as the sheriff is driving towards the house. Alex ends up finding like a variety of anatomical drawings and then some various medical textbooks about rejuvenation that were written by Dr. Hackenstein. And then he finds a gun and he's like, that's useful. So he tucks that away for himself and then he starts searching the house further. And this is when he decides to go ahead and break into the room where he saw the sleeping, quote unquote, sleeping Dean. And he goes to check on him and finds that he is dead. And right as he sort of accepts this, we find out that the Dean is not dead. He sits up screaming, jump scaring Alex pretty good. And Dr. Hackenstein also hears the screams and rushes in with Melanie at his side. And he's like, "Okay, go fetch me my bag. I can help this man." And he seems like genuinely like he wants to save the Dean. He did not want the Dean to be dead. But while all that's going on, Alex takes advantage of the chaos and he sneaks out to continue snooping around the house. Again, we see some crosscuts to the detective still in his car on his way there. But this time Alex manages to find the secret lab, including the creature on... no, he doesn't find the amalgamated woman creature. He finds the rat puppet creature in the cage, which freaks him out. And then he sees a big vault door that he opens where there we see the female creature who is, laying naked on the table. Again, classic 80s topless women kind of stuff here. And meanwhile, the Dr. Hackenstein, things have stabilized, but he notices that Alex is gone, and he's like, "Okay, you keep an eye on him, make sure he's safe while I figure out what happened with your cousin, where he's gone." And of course, he finds him in the secret lab, and he's got a syringe ready for Alex, but Alex pulls the gun on him, and we have like a face-off where Alex is like, "I knew it. You're a murderer, and you're going to go to jail for the rest of your life. Or you might even hang for this. But I don't have to tell anybody what I've seen here. If a little bit of money comes my way, maybe I just never say a word about anything that happened here." Hackenstein like dashes at Alex to try to like dodge the gun and stab him, and Alex fires, but the gun is empty. It didn't matter anyway. So Hackenstein injects Alex, who like collapses to the ground, sort of like catatonic, and that's when Dr. Hackenstein starts talking to Sheila again, apologizing, but this is it. I'm going to give you the breath of life soon enough. And it's at that point that the detective comes across the wrecked car, and so he knows something strange is going on. There's no one nearby, but there is a house within walking distance, so he continues on his way towards the Hackenstein Manor. Meanwhile, Melanie hears some sounds, and she walks downstairs to see, and finds Dr. Hackenstein dragging the half unconscious Alex down the stairs, like by his foot, so his head's like thump, thump, thump down the stairs. And Alex is like, he drugged me, but like it's, he's like talking nonsense, barely understandable for us who know what happened. Melanie does not understand. And so Elliot is like, "Melanie, I need you to be my nurse. Keep an eye on the Dean, keep an eye on Alex, make sure they're stable and, nothing gets any worse. And I'm going to go upstairs to my lab because I can make some medicine that will save them both. I'll be right back." So he leaves, and, Alex continues to try to like talk to her in his half-drugged state. Eventually he's able to point, and she finds those notes that Alex found earlier, she finds the books written by Dr. Hackenstein, and she finds an additional thing, a news clipping explicitly describing Sheila's death and Elliot's subsequent disappearance. So she has like a lot of evidence that Dr. Hackenstein is up to no good. And meanwhile, this is when the detective finally arrives at the house, and this is where he rings the doorbell. He like pulls a rope, and it like, yanks on the maid's leg, who is asleep. And for the next couple scenes, we'll occasionally cut to him pulling harder and harder. And like she gets, does a flip, gets thrown out of bed. It's a whole big thing. Eventually she does wake up and go answer the door. But first, we have Melanie finding Wendy and Leslie's bags full of clothes. And she's like, oh no, they definitely would not have left without their clothes. Something is suspicious around here. And then she like opens up one of the books written by Hackenstein, and like it's straight up just a drawing of like, various corpse parts assembled to make it's like a stick woman. And she's like, this doesn't seem right. So she goes looking for Elliot again and ends up finding our, amalgamated creation. And that's when Elliot pops up finding her, and he says, you're just in time. See, it's best when you take the organs from a still living specimen. She's like, you killed my cousins? And he's like, no, they're fine. They're going to live on. And so will you, as soon as I give Sheila the gift of sight through your eyes. And so we have like Melanie being like, wait, no, you don't have to do this, trying to, do the whole like negotiator kind of thing. And, she even is like, that creature on the table, that will never be your wife. It will always be some sort of creation you made. And the best thing you can do for her is to just let her die with dignity and stop prolonging her suffering. But then we see that, there's like some lightning happening and everything. And the creature starts taking breaths, which excites, Elliot, and he runs over and sits next to her, and Melanie is using this chance to try to sneak out of the room. Sheila, as she like fully wakes up, she's like, Elliot, but what happened? My eyes, give me back my eyes. And Elliot's like, I promise I will. You must see. And so of course he catches Melanie before she escapes. He attacks her. There's another whole big fight. And now the maid walks in and sees everything this time. Like, sees Elliot, fighting Melanie, holding a syringe. But they don't see her this time. So we have the maid sneaking back out, closing the door very quietly. And, she knows that she popped in there to tell Elliot that a detective was here. So she rushes back, and we get a really great bit where like she needs to tell the detective now what's going on. So we get an extended like mime charade bit, and she's great. She does a great job. It's very clear what she's saying, and the detective is fucking clueless. He has no idea what she's talking about until he hears Melanie scream from upstairs. So he rushes up, breaks into the lab. He sees the half-naked creation on the slab, gets surprised, and that's when Hackenstein pops up behind him, hits him on the back of the head, knocks him out. Then we have the maid rush in. She bumps into Alex and knocks him down a flight of stairs. And he's like, oh, I'll be so glad when all this is over. Like, he's just had the worst luck. And so now, with no one left to stop him, Dr. Hackenstein is approaching the crying Melanie, who's trapped in a corner. He's got this long curved knife, and she's just staring at him with tear-filled puppy dog eyes, and he just simply cannot do it. He cannot hurt this girl. And so he has a breakdown, and he's like, I am in hell. I am a scientist unable to complete his experiment. I am a husband unable to forget his dead wife. But most of all, I am a hollow soul who for the first time in years has started to feel love again. And that's when the detective pops up behind him and jabs him with a syringe, and Elliot falls. He seems to like fall on his knife or something, because like We never see like below, the shoulders or whatever, but like a lot of blood is coming out of his mouth for the rest of the film. And he's just kind of laying there. Like it seems like he's dying, and we hear Sheila calling out, "Elliot, where are you?" But it's not in Elliot's head this time. It's for real. The creation has woken up, is sitting up, and she immediately just starts nagging him. It turns out Sheila actually sucks. She's like, "Oh, where did you find this body? These arms are so flabby. I've been gone for so long, and this is the best you could find. And look at these stitches. They're amateur. This is awful. What would people think? You've turned me into a monster. I don't even have eyes." And she like starts tearing at her flesh, and there's just like blood running down her face and everything. And the whole time, Elliot is just laying there in agony as blood runs out of his mouth. And this is when Melanie finds out that Wendy and Leslie are still here, actually. They're underneath a sheet that she pulls back, and she wakes them. And it turns out Elliot was not lying. They are still alive. He took Wendy's legs and Leslie's arms, but he gave them the legs and arms from that man that the married couple dropped off. So they're still alive. They just have weird, bad, masculine limbs, and they, scream in agony at that. And then we see the detective and Melanie go out onto a balcony, and they see the female creation, Leslie, or Sheila, who is like running naked into the forest. And then Elliot comes out onto the balcony with them, sees her as well, and just throws himself off the balcony. And it's like, okay, I guess he really is, he's ending things now. But then we see the maid rush out into the yard, and she starts looking around and realizes that Elliot's gone. Somehow he went with her. And in fact, Melanie says, "He's gone." And that like takes us to credits. But this is a movie from 1988, and it's a comedy. So you know what we got. We got awesome credit wrap-up scene with song written specifically for the movie that summarizes the plot of the movie. This one's not like a rap one. It's more of like a kind of a new wave. It almost reminded me of like a bootleg like Devo song or something. And so we get like, freeze frames of all the characters telling us what happened next with them in like classic Animal House style. So we have Yolanda the maid, who went on to become a famous Hollywood silent film star, as she should. Did great mime work in this. Then we find Miss Trilling. She ran off to Barbados with her chauffeur. Deputy Robbins, who we only had like the brief scene with, he quit the police force and became a bootlegger during Prohibition. I don't know why. Some of these minor character ones, it's like we didn't really get to know them enough to like really think these jokes are going to land. But then we start getting into some of the middle level characters. The dean was committed to a sanitarium where he just kept mumbling, "Must stop Hackenstein," and just eventually faded away into nothingness. The gravediggers did really well. They founded a successful chain of mortuaries across the country. Things are really looking up for them. Meanwhile, Alex found success as a stuntman, which is great because he just kept getting injured throughout the film. But then Wendy and Leslie, they found success in a traveling circus in the sideshow side of things. So presumably, they're in a freak show performing with their new weird masculine limbs. And then last, or almost last, I guess, we have Melanie and the detective who got married, and they had 3 boys, all of whom, for some reason, Melanie named Elliot. So seems like she's still holding a torch for Elliot, even in spite of everything that happened. And then, last of all, we have Dr. Hackenstein and Sheila, who were never seen again, but there were rumors that he continued his work elsewhere and maybe moved on from rejuvenation to an immortality serum. and may have even started experimenting on himself. And that's what takes us to our final actual credits. And yeah, so that is Dr. Hackenstein. So yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. It's just light, it's fun. It really, for a movie made in the 80s, it has like no problematic shit. There's not any like stereotypes that are common. There's no slurs. Like it's just good and fun. It's very silly, but still does a good job with what it's with its source material. Like it's it's very Frankenstein-y, or I guess more so Bride of Frankenstein-y, with like a little bit of Reanimator thrown in there for good measure. And of course it fits into the classic trope of like the male mad scientist trying to make his perfect woman. So yeah, of course we have like 3 young girls, and we end up with a half naked bride with like perky breasts and looking mostly beautiful, other than like a few little scars here and there, and of course the sewn shut eyeballs that we never get resolved. But it's a trope for a reason. I think we've really talked extensively about it in various versions, but like this idea of the female body as like a commodity for men, and the male gaze and all of that, like this is very much in the here, but like again, it is not this is not condoning it. Like Dr. Hackenstein is the villain here. We're supposed to not approve of what he's doing, and we have the classic thing with like sort of like an evil stepsisters trope thing, and that they kind of get their comeuppance, and Melanie's really the only one who like gets out of it looking great, and she's sort of our Cinderella character in a way, but obviously having to survive a horror movie first. Yeah, so I don't know. This movie is not incredibly deep. Like there's not a lot of thematic stuff to talk about that we haven't like already beaten to death in other films. But I highly recommend this one. Like, of all the Tubi things that I've done in the past couple of months, this one is at the top of the pile. Super fun. And yeah, just really, really great stuff. And weird that it's not more well known. This is of a time when we had a lot of these sort of wacky comedies nodding at various other properties, and this is the time of Caddyshack and Porky's and Ghostbusters and all, like, and there's so many great mid to late 80s comedies, and I don't really know what kept this one from getting a little bit more attention than it has. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, and I had never seen this before today. Like it's been on our list for a long time, but I had held off until I was going to, record about it. But yeah, if this has also not been on your radar, highly, highly recommend you check out Dr. Hackenstein. I'll put a, link in the show notes and all that to the Tubi page. But yeah, absolutely worth your time. Just a good, fun, light, good time kind of movie. And, yeah, it's always nice to have a couple of those, especially, some fun ones you've not seen before. So give Dr. Hackenstein a chance, and yeah, let us know what you think about it, because I sure had fun with it. And yeah, so I think, last week I hinted that next week we will be talking with Tim Kirk. I believe that's still the case. We're working on scheduling. It's been a little dicey, but probably it will be an episode with Tim. If not, we'll see. There may be something else. I may surprise us all with something and then get Tim the week after that. But we definitely have some coming up with him, and we'll see. And as always, you can find us on all the socials at The Frankencast. You can email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com. We're also over on YouTube. And of course, you can always find us at patreon.com/thefrankencast, where there's plenty more solo stuff for me. There's plenty of stuff with, me and Hayden, stuff with me and Eric, stuff with me and Tim. There's all kinds of good stuff over there. Whatever you're into, we've got all kinds of Frankenstein ephemera that doesn't fit on the main feed. So stop by, listen to us talk about comic books, TV shows, songs, whatever, all kinds of good stuff. So we'd love to have you. And as always, to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman, Eric Velasquez, and Hayden Orr. Follow us online at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.